Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Monday, November 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. In today's episode, in our box office segment, we'll speak to Rebecca Rubin about the worst weekend of 2025. There's no mystery about the reason why, as Rebecca explains. I will share some thoughts about the new undisputed king of LA sports, Mark Walter. He's the guy who accepted the trophy on Saturday when the Los Angeles Dodgers sealed the deal after that thrilling Game 7 to win the World Series in Toronto. 2 days before that, Walter finally completed his purchase of a majority stake in the Los Angeles Lakers. That's a lot of LA clout. And finally, Marc Malkin brings us a Just for Variety red carpet rundown with the mother-daughter comedy duo of Cindy Crawford and Kaia Gerber. He ran into them at LACMA's Art Plus Film Gala on Saturday night. But before we get to that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. The Disney YouTube channel's blackout endures. There must have been a lot of angry football fans this weekend missing ESPN. I'm told there was pretty much no progress over the weekend, and the sides remain far apart on a number of deal points. Let's hope this doesn't go as long as the federal government shutdown, which is now in day 33. CNN is getting creative with its election coverage for tomorrow night. It's going to serve up the political equivalent of the Manning cast alternative to Monday Night Football on ESPN. CNN has tapped Charlemagne the God, Ben Shapiro, Kara Swisher, and others to deliver an alternate election night telecast on CNN's new all-access subscription streamer. That should be an interesting addition to the mix. Don't skip Chris Willman's fabulous review of Nicole Scherzinger's concert at Disney Hall last week. The day after Variety celebrated her at Power of Women, Scherzinger showed exactly why her career is on fire right now. What a voice. All of these stories and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. Now we turn to conversations with Variety journalists about news and trends in show business. If it's Monday, we're talking box office with Rebecca Rubin, our senior film and media reporter. It was a weekend to forget at the multiplexes. Rebecca Rubin, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
In journalism, you're always looking for the obvious lead. Well, this weekend at the box office, we have a pretty obvious lead. Rebecca, tell us what went on, or maybe tell us what didn't go on at the box office this Halloween weekend.
Yeah, this was a scary Halloween for movie theaters in the sense that nobody showed up. It was a very light weekend, and it resulted in the worst turnout so far in 2025. And there are a few factors that are contributing to that. One of them is there were not any new releases, and that ties into another reason, which is that Halloween this year fell on a Friday. It's been a very, very long time since Halloween has coincided with the weekend. And so that meant that families were out trick-or-treating and they weren't going to their local movie theater over the weekend, which is, of course, the busiest time for movie theaters. And then a third reason that analysts have been pointing to is the World Series game, which culminated last night, and the LA Dodgers cinched a win. And normally I would question whether or not that actually affected attendance, but since Los Angeles is one of the biggest cities for moviegoing, you have to think that it was at the very least a distraction.
For sure, the most classic baseball movie could not have scripted a better game with comebacks and an unexpected. I'm telling you, if you had a passing interest in baseball, you were going to check out this game. And in general, even when Halloween falls at another time of the week, that it's really typically not a big box office week. Am I reading that right?
This was a particularly dismal October at the box office. It was actually the lowest grossing month since 1997. And it's really because basically all of the big budget movies, the awards contenders that are scheduled for this time of year, none of them really broke out. We saw the Disney movie Tron Ares. There was the Dwayne Johnson sports biopic, The Smashing Machine, Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere, of course, the musical biopic about Bruce Springsteen. There was a smattering of movies, and really none of them just connected in a big way at the box office. A few bright spots. There was the Taylor Swift release party of a Showgirl that came out at the beginning of the month. Sony and Crunchyroll's anime movie Chainsaw Man was an unexpected winner, but they just were not enough to overcompensate for some of these big misses, like the Luca Guadagnino movie After the Hunt, and a few of the other ones I mentioned.
In terms of this being such a light October, do you think it was the lack of titles that were available to theaters, or do you think
I think it was as simple as a lack of movies that people wanted to see. I was speaking to an independent theater owner a few weeks ago, and they were saying that the press can nitpick what went wrong all the time, but theater owners joke to each other, what went wrong is the movie wasn't good enough to get people to go to theaters. And it's as simple as that. There were a decent amount of new releases. None of them were tent poles on a grand scale, but September was pretty decent. We saw a few breakout hits.
it's the cinema variation of it's the economy, stupid, the play's the thing, and that's what it comes down to. Also interesting, Netflix and AMC took a rare gamble together, and Netflix re-released K-pop Demon Hunters, but this title actually seems to have found a little gravity with this re-release.
That was a significant development this weekend because K-pop Demon Hunters returned to theaters with a sing-along screening, and it's notable because it was playing in AMC, which is the world's largest cinema chain, and they typically refuse to show movies from Netflix because, of course, Netflix prioritizes streaming over theatrical. And so this was only the second time in history that a Netflix movie is played in a big capacity on AMC screens. And it didn't do as well. K-pop Demon Hunters also played in theaters in August, and it made roughly $18 million. Of course, Netflix does not report box office earnings, so these are estimates from rival studios and exhibitors. This time around, they think that K-pop made roughly $6 million, and while that is decent money for a movie that's been playing on Netflix for months, I think that, like you said, gravity kind of hit it, and with families distracted by trick-or-treating and the accessibility of it at home, and the fact that probably a lot of the biggest fans already saw it on the big screen in August, there might not have been such a big demand to go back to theaters to see it again.
Are there any signs, though, that there's a thaw in the relationship between Netflix and AMC and they might experiment on other things? Or do you think this was a one-off that was specific about Halloween?
I do think they are planning to work together in the future. When Netflix announced that they were re-releasing K-pop Demon Hunters over the Halloween weekend, AMC put out a statement saying that they were, quote, intrigued by the mutually beneficial opportunities that could arise, end quote. And what I think I've gathered that means is that AMC is not expecting Netflix to put out a full theatrical slate or fully abide by a 30 to 45 day window like other distributors. But what they are willing to work with Netflix on are these fan events that Netflix has been having. And so if they're going to put really popular projects like K-pop Demon Hunters, or they're taking the Stranger Things finale to theaters on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, that's what they're interested in. And so for AMC, it's kind of just providing additional revenue during slower times of the year, but they're not treating it like a release from a major distributor. They're looking at it more like a fan event that Fathom or a similar company would be putting into theaters with a re-release of a major film.
It does seem like they can both find common ground around events, having stunts. And clearly Netflix can see, if you want to make a big splash in pop culture, America's theater chains are a pretty good place to do it. Well, I appreciate that analysis, Rebecca. What else should we be watching for coming up? As I understand, it's going to be a couple of light weekends until we get some heavy hitters closer to Thanksgiving.
It might be a slow November until we get to Wicked, For Good, and Zootopia at the end of the month. Before we get to those big movies, next weekend we'll see the release of Disney's Predator Badlands, and then there's the Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which is the third movie in that heist trilogy. And there's also The Running Man, a remake directed by Edgar Wright and starring Glenn Powell. And so it'll be interesting to see if any of those can buck this down October period and break the curse, bring people back to theaters. But it sounds like it's going to, at the very least, be a really big Thanksgiving. And so exhibitors are quite excited about that.
We'll get ready to feast. Forgive me. Rebecca, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Now let's pause for a moment to mark a milestone for LA sports fans. Last Thursday, the Lakers finally put out a press release confirming that Mark Walter is now the majority owner of the team. He bought his stake from the Buss family that has owned the Lakers since the late 1970s. This transaction was first announced in June. Trying to get anybody from the Lakers organization or Walter's camp to talk has been fruitless for the past few months, as I found out after about 20 calls and as many emails. Walter is CEO of Guggenheim Partners, a gigantic investment firm, and he is also co-chairman and CEO with Thomas Tull of TWG Global, a holding company that invests in all kinds of tech, media, and sports. The Lakers and the Dodgers will remain separate entities. Jeannie Buss will continue to run day-to-day operations for the Lakers, but still, having these two marquee properties gives Walter enormous sway over sports and Los Angeles in ways that we probably can't even fathom yet. It certainly puts him in an interesting perch for the 2028 Summer Olympics. Walters bought into the Dodgers in 2012 with a group of investors that included Magic Johnson and producer Peter Gerber. Walter is famously press-shy, but here's a clip of him speaking on a panel with Magic Johnson at the 2024 Milken Conference in Los Angeles.
We're the lucky ones, right? People say, oh, you own the Dodgers. Well, really, in some ways, you're just a custodian. And the Dodgers will be around and hopefully be iconic long after everybody's forgotten me. But Peter Gerber, who's partners with us, when we first got started, said something that, I don't know if people remember, the Dodgers weren't doing super well when we first took over. So we had, a challenge to try to turn things around and get people back to the park. And Peter said, all you got to do, Mark, is shoot at their hearts. Forget the pocketbook, just shoot at the hearts. And we've tried to do that and tried to be good citizens in town and be demanding. Irvin's a competitive guy, and I think I am too. And, we're not satisfied. Frankly, I don't know if you remember when Ohtani was accepting coming to play for us. We didn't really know for sure we were going to get him. I mean, it felt like it was definitely a coin flip. And at the signing, he said something that we told him, that despite the fact we'd actually the winningest team in baseball for the last 10 years, and we've been to 3 World Series, 5 NLCSs, I told him I really felt we were still a failure and that we really had to step it up. And I do feel that way. We have yet to really establish what we should.
Dodgers fans like me would have a hard time finding fault with the team's trajectory under Walter's ownership. The boys in blue just notched back-to-back World Series wins. But control of the Blue Crew and the purple and gold is significant and another sign of the relentless business consolidation in our world. I hope Walter makes it to the Dodgers' victory parade in downtown Los Angeles today. Even more than the Lakers, the Dodgers are the one thing that can bring LA's far-flung communities together. That is a precious commodity. Now we'll hear from Marc Malkin with the Just for Variety Red Carpet Rundown.
Thanks so much, Cynthia. This year's LACMA Art and Film Gala on Saturday night proved once again that it is one of Los Angeles' starriest events of the year. This guest list included event co-chair Leonardo DiCaprio, Elle Fanning, Lord, Angela Bassett, Cynthia Erivo, Samara Weaving, Kerry Washington, Troye Sivan, Benito Skinner, Tessa Thompson, Emma Roberts, and Paris Hilton, just to name a few. The evening, which honored Sinners and Black Panther filmmaker Ryan Coogler and visual artist Mary Corse, raised a record-breaking $6.5 million for the museum. Among those I chatted with on the red carpet was mother-daughter duo Cindy Crawford and Kaia Gerber. First of all, I have to tell you, they are the most stunning mother-daughter duo. Gerber talked about filming her starring role in Ryan Murphy's television series adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's prep school thriller novel, The Shards.
The Shards right now is really a dream come true. I love Bret Easton Ellis and I love Ryan Murphy, so like the marriage of those worlds and getting to film in LA, and it's set in LA, it's in the 80s, so like that's really my dream, yeah.
Did you go into your mom's closet and get some of her 80s shoulder pads for you in the shop?
I'm not sure you own any shoulder pads. I probably own more shoulder pads than she does.
You can check out more of our interviews, including Wicked director John M. Chu revealing how he asked Coleman Domingo to voice the Cowardly Lion in Wicked for Good across any of Variety's social platforms, including X and Instagram.
As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. Warner Brothers Discovery delivers third quarter earnings before the bell on Thursday. There's a lot to talk about in the land of Zaslav. Variety is once again all over the map this week. We're producing digital dailies out of the Taiwan Creative Content Festival starting November 6th. The next day, we'll have reporters in Estonia covering the Tallinn Black Nights Film Festival and in Greece for the Thessaloniki Festival. And the day after that, we'll be covering the Torino Film Festival in Italy. And next week, we are off to Cairo. You can find all of this coverage on Variety.com under the Global tab. Before we go, congrats to Jim Gaffigan. He'll receive the Comedy Vanguard Award from Variety at the New York Comedy Festival on November 9th. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton, with contributions from Rebecca Rubin and Marc Malkin. Sticks, Nicks, Hick Picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice. And please tune in tomorrow for another episode of Daily Variety.